to this week's Sunday school lesson. So this week I decided to do Daniel and the Lion's Den. This is one of my favorites, and once again, you can find this story right here in the Bible. So this is not made up, even though it's a story. It's real life. It really happened. And we can use what the Bible tells us to help us with situations that we're in today. So, your challenge this week is to find Daniel in the Bible as quickly as you can. And if you want to race your mom or dad or your brother or sister, see how fast you can do it, that would be great. So look for Daniel. That's where the story comes from. So, I'm going to start out with, we're normally on the floor, and even though I'm on the floor, I'm doing this on my table so you can maybe see it a little bit better. This is our chain. This is the exile chain. It's a really heavy chain right there. So the people were in exile. They had been living in Babylon for a long time. So many had gotten used to living there. Some even had jobs in the court of the king. Daniel and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, worked at the king's court. God blessed Daniel and his friends with learning, wisdom, and skill. So I know each of you are blessed with the same things, with learning, because you get to go to school. Even though right now you're not physically in school, you still get to learn through technology, and you have wisdom, and each one of you has a very special skill. So, one day, the king of Babylon had a dream. He saw a great shining figure. As he watched it, fell apart and blew away in the wind. Just blew away. None of the king's wise men knew what it meant, but Daniel did. A time will come when all the kingdoms of the world will be destroyed, but God's kingdom will last forever. And guess what? You and I are in God's kingdom, so we're going to last forever. Another day, the king made a huge gold statue of a person. We've talked about this before. He commanded the people to bow down when they heard special music and worship the image. Not good, right? The people who did not obey would be thrown into a furnace full of fire. Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, would not worship the statue, so they were thrown into the blazing furnace. God sent an angel to keep them safe, and not a hair on their heads was burned in the fire. The king was amazed, so he gave the 3 friends a place of honor in his court. So next we have this painting. The king had another dream. The wise men of the court could not understand it, so again they brought Daniel to the king. The king dreamed about a tree that touched the sky. It had beautiful leaves and fruit all around in the tree, and animals found shelter under it, and the birds were in the branches. They lived there. The Holy One came down from heaven and said, "Cut down the tree and let the animals flee and the birds fly away." Daniel prayed to God, and God showed him what it meant. Daniel told the king, "The tree you saw was you. You are great and strong like the tree, but you will be driven away from your people and live like an animal, eating grass for 7 long years." Think about that. That's almost as long as your whole entire life. 7 long years. That's a long time. And the dream was true. The king was driven out and lived like an animal for 7 years. When he came back to his throne, he worshiped the one true God. After the king died, his son began to rule. So he didn't know the one true God. So you can imagine how this is going to go. One time he held a great feast and used the holy things from the temple in Jerusalem that the Babylonians had brought to their own city. extra credit if you can understand what this says. Suddenly, the people at the party saw the fingers of a human handwriting on the wall. The king could not read the writing. The clock just happened to go off right now. So he sent for Daniel. The words, Mene Tekel Parson, which meant, God will bring this king's rule to an end, and the kingdom of Babylon will be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night the king was killed and King Darius took over. King Darius divided his new kingdom into 120 parts and placed 3 rulers over them. One of these 3 was Daniel. All right. I know y'all know what this is. The other 2 rulers were jealous of Daniel. They knew he was the king's favorite and might one day rule over them. They decided to trick the king into making a law that Daniel could not keep. Everyone had to pray only to King Darius or be cast into a den of lions. Right there. They knew that Daniel worshipped the one true God, so he would never pray to the king. One day, Daniel was caught in his room facing Jerusalem and praying to God. They brought him to the king. The king liked Daniel, but law was a law. Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. The king worried about Daniel, so in the morning he ran to the lion's den and called for Daniel. Daniel answered, I'm fine. God sent an angel to protect me from the lions. The king was filled with gladness, and he gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. The men who had accused Daniel were thrown into the lion's den instead, and they were killed. So Daniel was honored throughout the kingdom, and he prospered all the rest of his life. So, you remember the dreams that the king had? Daniel also had visions and dreams himself. One time, Daniel dreamed that 4 great beasts came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. The second looked like a bear standing on its hind legs and 3 ribs in its mouth. The third was like a leopard but had 4 wings on its back and 4 heads. Ooh. The last beast was more terrifying than the rest and very strong. It had iron teeth and 10 horns. My goodness. Those are awful looking animals. As he looked, another horn appeared that rooted out 3 of the horns. As Daniel watched, this 4th beast was put to death. The others were not killed, but they lost all their powers. Then God appeared and ruled the rest forever. Daniel woke from his dream very troubled. He told his helper all about all he had seen. His helper told Daniel what it meant. He said, 4 kings will rise out of the earth, but their power will not last. It is God alone who will rule forever. So, another time Daniel had a vision of himself standing by a river. Beside him was a ram with 2 horns, one longer than the other. This ram charged all around, destroying everything in his path, and as it charged, it became stronger. As Daniel watched, a male goat appeared from the west. It was as if it were flying. The goat had a horn between its eyes. The goat charged the ram, breaking its 2 horns and trampling it on the ground. Daniel could not understand what he saw, but an angel named Gabriel came to him and told him that this was a vision of the end of all time. A king will arise, more powerful and evil than the others. This dream frightened Daniel. Daniel prayed for many days, asking the Lord to forgive the people for their evil ways and to restore the great city of Jerusalem. Daniel remembered that the prophet Jeremiah had said that the city would be restored after 70 years, and yet it remained in pieces. Not to scoot these over just a little bit. Make myself some room here. This is normally Olivia's job, so I know I'm not doing it right, but she will make sure to let me know. Okay, So one day, as he prayed, the angel Gabriel appeared to him again. Gabriel said, "The Lord God has heard your prayers and has sent me to try and help you understand." Jeremiah meant 70 times 7, a much longer time than anyone imagined. This was because the sin of the people was so great. The words of the angel Gabriel filled Daniel with great sadness. He fasted for 3 weeks, and then God sent him yet another vision. This time, Daniel saw someone like a man dressed in linen with a belt of gold around his waist. Daniel fell to the ground before him. A hand touched him and raised him up. The figure like a man said to Daniel, "Do not be afraid, be strong and courageous. I have come to help you understand these visions." He told Daniel that the power of all kings will come to an end. He explained that this time will be difficult, but that God will stay close to God's people and deliver them from all danger. Did you hear that? God will deliver them from all danger. They will live with God forever. Then the figure like a man told Daniel to keep all these things secret, and he promised Daniel that all would be well for him and all of God's people. So, I wonder what part of this story did you like the best? There's a lot of pieces to this story. I'm thinking there were a lot of parts that I liked the best, but when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, was he hurt? He wasn't hurt. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fiery furnace, did a hair on their head get burnt? No. And you know why? That's because God was watching over them and God protected each and every one of them. So we can learn from that, learn from the stories that we hear and we read, learn from that, and guess what? Everything that we're going through today, God is protecting us from that too. That's my favorite part. So, I wonder what part of this story is about you. There's a lot of parts to this story. I think that angels watching out over us, that could be about you. God protecting you could be about you. Maybe you have dreams too. Maybe you have visions that you don't quite understand. But God has a meaning for everything. He has a purpose for your life. And this story can help you in so many different ways. There's a lot of pieces to this story. So, that was the end of our lesson, but I do want to pray before we close. And if you will join me, even though you're not here, we're still connected in the heart. So, dear Jesus, we just thank you so much for each one of the kids that are watching, for each one of them that can still get this lesson from afar. Even though we're not in the same room, we're still connected through you, Lord. And we just thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to still worship you and praise you and still learn about you. Even through the things that we're going through each and every day, we can still learn something about you. And we can be thankful that you are taking care of us each and every day. And we don't even know it sometimes, but you are with us. You have your hands on us. And I just ask, Lord, that you be with those who are sick today, be with those who are hurting, be with those who are anxious and scared. Just lay your healing hands on them, Lord. Just put your shield around them and protect them and give them an overwhelming comfort during this time, Lord. And thank you for loving us, and thank you for taking such wonderful care of us. And we love you, Jesus. Amen.